Hey, everybody, and welcome back to World History. Today we're doing section 2 of our unit on Rome. So go ahead and get your notes out and let's get started. So Rome's expansion had created a lot of conflicts that weakened and crushed the Republic. At this point in history, Rome had expanded to cover all of Italy, the surrounding islands, parts of Spain, and moving up into the mountains into Europe itself. So the Romans grew a lot through conquest at this period. One of the great examples is that of the Punic Wars, which we'll go more in depth on in the next few minutes. From 264 BC to 146 BC, it was Rome versus the city of Carthage. We've talked about the city of Carthage before as it relates to the ancient Phoenicians. It was along the coast of Africa in modern-day Tunisia. It was established by the North Africans and Phoenicians, and it was located in the Western Mediterranean. Essentially, Rome wanted it for themselves because they wanted it. So when we talk about the Punic War, there's three major Punic Wars that we talk about. So the first one was 264 to 241 BC, so a little over 20 years. And in this battle, Rome wins Sicily, Corsica, and Sardinia, these three islands that are basically the only bits of land between Italy and Carthage. In the second Punic War, Carthage wanted revenge for those islands being taken, and their leader, Hannibal, used war elephants on the battlefield. They surprised Rome from the north, so they came in and surprised them. They did fail to capture Rome, though, at least in the early days of the Roman Empire. No enemy was successful in actually capturing the city. They were outflanked, and then they were defeated in the city of Carthage once again. That is a picture of Hannibal for you. Now, the third and final Punic War, the end of this, 149 to 146 BC. So this only went on for 3 years. Rome just said, we're done. We're done with this. They destroyed the city of Carthage. As a result of this, they then controlled the entire Western Mediterranean, as you can see from this green area, where before the second Punic War, and then the orange after the Punic Wars ended. So, masters of the Mediterranean, through an idea known as imperialism, or establishing control over foreign lands and peoples, they built essentially an empire. They had a strong alliance with Egypt, and most of these areas in red surrendered and became provinces. Places like Macedonia, Greece, and Asia Minor. All of these major places that we've talked about previously. So there was some impacts of conquest. New riches were being brought in, and a new class of wealthy emerged in Rome and established something known as the Latifundia, or these huge farming estates. We have a painting of one right here. And it also saw the rise of slave labor in Rome. Now, these latifundias really hurt small farmers, and the gap between the rich and the poor continued to grow. It's also during this time the Republic's government was filled with a lot of corruption and greed and self-interest that led to the rise of some reformers, people like Tiberius Gracchus and Gaius Gracchus, two brothers. They were both tribunes, and Tiberius made sure that land was distributed to poor farmers, while Gaius made sure public funds were used to buy grain for the poor. Now, these reformers angered the Senate massively. They were like, no, don't do that. They don't need any help. Why are you doing that? So eventually, the Republic declined through a series of civil wars. Who should have the power? There was a number of uprisings and revolts because everybody wanted to be leader. It's kind of like the idea that everybody wanted to sit in the big chair. And legions became loyal to their commanders, not Rome itself. This is really where we started to see the military transition from being loyal to the state to individual commanders, which allowed our first group of people to rise to power, the first triumvirate, that being Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus in about 60 BC. So triumvirate is a group of three persons with equal power, which control the government. Caesar actually, during this time, conquered the Celts in England, expanding the Roman Empire to what would become the United Kingdom. Crassus would actually die fighting in the east in 53 BC, And eventually Pompey, who was the only one that actually stayed in Rome, and the Senate ordered Caesar to return to Rome, but leave his legions north of the Rubicon River because they were fearful that if he came in with his entire army, that they would take over the city. That being said, Caesar didn't listen to that. He brought his army with him, and eventually he did go to conflict with Pompey. So Caesar defied him in the Senate. They crossed the Rubicon River, which essentially meant war. And the phrase "Itaca alle est," or "the die has been cast," in the crossing of the Rubicon, there's no going back from this. They crushed Pompey and his supporters, saying "Vene, vidi, vici," which I believe translates to "I came, I saw, I conquered," if I remember correctly. He became the absolute ruler of Rome and the first emperor. So, some of Caesar's reforms. He actually did a lot in terms of reforms. In terms of public works, he made a lot of jobs for the unemployed and gave land to the poor. He reorganized provincial governments so there were more citizens, and created the Roman calendar, aka the Julian calendar, which you can see over here, in which you may recognize some of these month names, mainly things like September, October, November, and December. Those names have not changed in over 2,000 years. And realistically, you could figure out what the rest of these months are. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. And then the last 4 months of the year are the same ones that we have today. Here's some more quotes about Caesar. We'll watch a video on his death after we're done with notes today. Suffice to say, he really should have stayed home. But to give you a brief story of that. One day, walking through the market, Caesar was approached by this old woman that was saying, "Beware the Ides of March," essentially a warning. And the Ides of March is actually a holiday celebrated in Rome on March 15th. Now, Caesar didn't think nothing of it. This was a few months in advance, just kept going on. The day of, his wife actually told him, "Stay home. Please don't go." But he did. When he got there, his fellow senators stabbed him to death, including his own friend, Brutus, hence the phrase, "Et tu, Brute." They stabbed him over 30 times, and he bled out on the Senate floor and died. Now, Caesar actually has a very remarkable legacy left on humanity. I mean, of course, we could talk about Caesar salads and all that stuff, but other things, especially in the realm of medicine, really established a legacy for Caesar. He was the first person that we are aware of to be born via C-section, which is why the full term is cesarean section or Caesar section. He was also one of the first people to receive an autopsy as well. Here's a painting depicting the death of Caesar. Now, following Caesar's death, there was very much a power struggle in Rome because everybody wanted to be emperor again. So it was Octavian versus Marc Antony and Cleopatra, this being Octavian here and this being Marc Antony. Now, Marc Antony and Cleopatra would both die. Marc Antony would be killed in battle. The records for Cleopatra, some say she died of a snake bite, others suggest that she died of poison. Octavian won either way. It was named Augustus, or the Exalted One. And at this point, the 500-year republic had ended, and now they transitioned to a true empire. So Augustus made a number of reforms as well. He established very much a strong foundation for stable government. Now, that doesn't mean everything that was established under the Republic went away. The Senate still remained. They just had less power. Civil service was established to enforce laws. Jobs were given on talent versus class. And self-government was given to cities and provinces as long as they maintained tribute to Rome. In terms of economic reforms, one of the biggest things was the establishment of the census, or a population count. We still have this in the United States today. Things also like the postal service, coins, and jobs for the jobs list. Now, there was always a constant concern for whomever was in power in Rome, who would take over when they died. We weren't doing a hereditary emperorship. it meant that anybody could take over, and it led to a lot of intrigue and violence in Rome. Now, there were some successors. These first two we're going to talk about are the bad ones, that being Caligula and Nero. Caligula, put into simple words, was insane. He was not exactly good in the noggin. Now, he has statues in synagogues all over the place, and he was irrational and violent. He only reigned for 4 years before somebody killed him. And then on the other hand, we have Nero. You may have heard of Nero before. He's the one that let the city of Rome burn to the ground. Now, he blamed Christians for this fire, when saying, "Qualis artifex perero," what an artist the world loses in me. Essentially, he didn't really do much aside from sitting in his palace and watching the whole city of Rome burn to the ground. All right, let's talk about some good emperors. We have Hadrian, who codified Roman law and built a wall around the city to protect it. And we have Marcus Aurelius, who exemplified the idea of Plato's philosopher king, which we talked briefly about last unit, the closest bit, and a strong commitment to duty. So, from Augustus to Marcus Aurelius, we refer to this as a time period known as Pax Romana, or Roman peace. It's the 200 years from when Augustus rose to power to the death of Marcus Aurelius. Peace, order, unity, and prosperity were established in the empire, especially in the realm of trade. From Egypt, they would get grain. From Africa, ivory, gold, and wild animals. They would get spices, cotton, and precious stones from India, silk from China, and embraced a lot of those Hellenistic ideas that we talked about at the end of last unit. All right. So in terms of entertainment, you had things like the Circus Maximus and chariot races. You had gladiators fighting life or death in the Colosseum, and the whole idea of bread and circuses really arose out of this. Essentially, good entertainment and good food. You're good to go. All right, that is it for notes for today. I'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.